Yes. Now is God going to continue to work? Is David going to continue to let him guide him? And David does. How and when is God going to bring about his promises to David? David has been promised the kingdom, but he's not going to follow through on that. I mean, how is he going to follow through on that? I think another thing we have to think about in this thing is the power of song. God, let's back up one. I didn't want to go past that slide too soon. A number of years ago, I was thinking about going into seminary and going to pastor school, in case you're not worried about what seminary is. And I didn't know which school to attend. But I knew God wanted me to do this, or I thought God wanted me to do this. And so I sent out a couple applications to a couple schools. And they sent back letters, and lo and behold, I was accepted, which is quite a miracle, I thought, on my part, because I had rather horrible grades, and it had taken me 7 years to graduate, and I wasn't sure whether they were going to take me in. But on the other hand, I have to make decisions myself. One of the schools required that you wear a tie to class. The other school said you could wear whatever you wanted. So I went with my personality, went to the school that didn't have the tie. God moves, even when there are obstacles. He eliminated all the need for me to have tremendous grades. He eliminated the need for me to have a tremendous GPA and have finished in 4 years. He moved in that direction, even though there were obstacles. When I walked into seminary to register for classes, I walked in and I saw a person I know from the college that I went to, and he looked up at me and said, "Hugh, you're the last person I expected to see here." God moves, but we have to wait for God's timing. Now, we need to make wise decisions. You know, I chose a school that didn't require me to wear a tie, but we also need to wait on God's timing. And we need to know that He can overcome any obstacles. I really was the last person they would have expected at that school. But God moves. Now we can talk about the power of song. In this chapter we see God moving through songs. And we need to understand that God does help us through times of grief, helps us through times of joy, through the power of song. Miriam sang at the victory that they had at the Red Sea. The women sang for Saul and David's military victories. And we can see that God uses these songs to help us to understand what He's doing in this world, and also to encourage us when we don't understand what God is doing in this world. Saul had slain his thousands, and now the mighty have fallen. And both of those things can be expressed in song, and we need to understand the power of song. This morning I chose some songs for our choruses that were in line with our kids, because we're talking about our Awana program and our Sunday school program, and they like the motions. Even Donna liked the motions. She was watching Donna try to dance is quite the thing. But we have songs that help us when we rejoice, and we have songs that help us when we grieve. We have songs that instruct us, and we need to know that God is taking care of that. We need to ask ourselves as we go through this passage, how did it happen that Saul was now dead? Why was Saul now dead? Why did this all come about, and how can we avoid this kind of thing? Saul was dissatisfied with the song that they sang about him. Saul has slain his thousands, David has slain his 10,000s. And one of the things that Saul didn't learn from that was to be encouraged with what God had told him to do in this life. Saul was unable to accept the role that God had for him. He couldn't take it, that he was second fiddle to God Himself. He wanted to be in charge of the universe, and he refused to listen to God. He presumed upon the grace of God by misappropriating royal power. Yes, he was king, but he was not the high king. He was not God, and he refused to listen to the high king of the universe. The same is true for the Amalekite messenger. He thought everything was about power as well. He thought if he just told David, I killed Saul, that David would be happy about this. He misunderstood David's thinking here. David wasn't about power. He was about serving the Lord. And that's why one of the last things we can look at here is David's motives. Now, you can look at all of these actions. He protected Judah. Did he do that because he wanted to build his power base? Or because it was what the king was supposed to do. He bribed the people of Judah. Was it because he was supposed to provide for his people, or was it because he was building his power base? He married women from Judah. Ahinoam is from Jezreel, and Abigail is from Carmel. Both places in Judah. Both had wide connections. Did he do this because it was right, or did he do this because he was maneuvering? How about his dealings with Jabesh-Gilead? We can take both of these, all of these, and say, ooh, he is just one more sneaky politician trying to build his way in this world, or are we going to take what the text says? Because the point of the text is not that David was this maneuvering politician. And he may have been. I wouldn't doubt that he had some, wisdom about him, some desire to maneuver, and we're not told a lot about that. But the point of the text is that he is an anointed one who, unlike Saul, is driven only by the promises of God, and he takes action under God's leadership. That's what we need to know. And we need to know that he's going to do that imperfectly, but that Jesus Christ, the perfect anointed one, is going to do that perfectly. Jesus Christ died because God sent him to the cross and he was obedient. He followed through. Satan said, if you fall down and worship me now, you won't have to go to the cross, you won't have to suffer, you won't have to die, and you'll end up in the same place. You have the whole world that will worship you. Jesus says, no, I'm going to do this in God's timing. I'm going to do this in God's plan. The question here is, who can serve suitably as King of Israel? Who can serve suitably as our King? Jesus Christ does that. One of the keys to understanding that David is suitable is that he kept inquiring for God's will. He was faithful. He persistently, consistently went after what God had to say. We need to do that as well. So how do we inquire after God's will? Israel's ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, God just talked to them. When Moses came along, Moses said, go to the priest. They have this ephod that they wear, and inside that ephod is a pair of dice, and when you need to know God's question, you just roll the dice, and it'll say yes or no, and you'll know what you're supposed to do. This is what David did. We still believe that God is a communicating God, that God wants to communicate to us. And so we are people of the book. We use the Bible to help us to follow where God leads. It illuminates our path. It lights up the way that we're supposed to go. And we follow the Bible, we study the Bible, we try to figure out what the Bible has to say so that we can know what God wants us to do. But David didn't just seek and find God's will. He also went.